This video goes over how to do a journal entry using the allowance method of uncollectibles. It is recorded as a debit to bad debt expense just like the direct write-off method. However, the credit is not to accounts receivable. It's first recorded to allowance for doubtful accounts. So a reserve is set up. In this case, it's $30,000 of reserves as estimates of the balance of uncollectibles. When the actual amount of uncollectible occurs, we will then write it off to accounts receivable. We will reverse or offset a portion or all of the balance of allowance for doubtful accounts, and then we transfer it to accounts receivable, a credit to accounts receivable. We would debit allowance for doubtful accounts and then credit accounts receivable. Keep in mind this $30,000 balance of allowance for doubtful accounts, a credit. That was in December. Now comes January 21st. John Parker's account of $6,000 is written off as follows. A debit to allowance for doubtful accounts. So there was $30,000. Now we're going to use up some of that $30,000. We are using $6,000. So we offset before a credit balance, now a debit balance to reduce the $30,000 to then $24,000 as the ending balance after this journal entry. And the credit is booked to accounts receivable, $6,000. So it reduces the accounts receivable balance of John Parker. Recall that the direct write-off method was just one step. The entry was debit, bad debt expense, credit, accounts receivable. So the write-off occurs right away. It reduces accounts receivable right away because we know it's going to be uncollectible. The allowance method, in contrast, is two-step. A debit to bad debt expense and a credit to allowance for doubtful accounts. So we have the balance of allowance for doubtful accounts established. Then when the actual uncollectible occurs, we would use some of that balance. We debit allowance for doubtful accounts, then the write-off to credit of accounts receivable balance.